so yeah, obviously, I am a big fan of your work, and this film is no exception. The genesis of Beast of War came from a single haunting image of men adrift, stalked by something unseen. Can you talk a bit about how that image grew into a full film and why you felt it had to be told as a shark survival story?
Yeah, I mean, these things are kind of funny how they start. I mean, I'll just be honest. Like a couple of years ago, my producer Blake Northfield called me up and he goes, "I can get access to a tank. Have you got anything set on water?" And I'm like, "No, man." And he goes, "Well, can you write something set on water?" And I'm like, "That sounds like a shark film." And he goes, "Great, I'll call you in a month." And like that's how these things start sometimes, you know. And so I was sitting around going, if it's going to be a shark, it has to be something to do with the USS Indianapolis speech from Jaws. I mean, we all love that monologue so much. We've all been waiting for that film and nobody made it. So I'm like, oh, okay, well, I can't do the American version because that would cost $87 million and I'd need to have Nicolas Cage in it. And you know, so I just did 2 minutes of sort of Google searching, and I found the Australian version of that story, which is, you know, the true life sinking of the HMAS Armidale in 1942, halfway between Darwin and Timor. So I did have inspiration from a true thing, and you know, you're talking about an image. There is an image that they took of these guys on a raft and they're all waving up at the plane.
Yeah.
They took a photo of the last survivors from that tragedy, and they were never seen again. And that's a haunting image. You know, you got a bunch of guys. I think it's like 10 guys, maybe 12 guys. You know, all just like set adrift on a raft in the middle of the ocean, being eaten by sharks.
Yeah, yeah.
Bleeding out. You know, they've got the most horrible, bullet wounds and all that kind of stuff from the attack on the warship, and they just survived for so long. Some of them made it back. You know, they jerry rigged a motorboat and got back to close to Darwin, got picked up, and the others you just never saw them again. And so, I mean, it's such a horrible, tragic, true story. I could never tell that story, so I was very careful not to say based on, like this is inspired by,
Yeah, yeah.
um, because what they went through was just brutal, and I was looking to make something a little bit more entertaining than that. You know what I mean? But I was very inspired by true life things, and that image of those boys set adrift in the middle of this vast abyss of ocean. That just held me through the entire making of the film, and I'm like, there was a level of social and emotional importance to this one that I hadn't really had in my previous films, and I think it shows on screen. I think everybody felt that there was a reality behind what we were doing, and it made it a little bit more real than just sharks munching people in the ocean.
Definitely, definitely. Yeah. I really appreciate that candid answer. Like I know to me it felt very emotional as far as how you described all of that. And this film, you also describe it as a story of silence and violence, isolation and identity, which I couldn't agree more with. How did you balance those visceral thrills of a creature feature with those deeper psychological and cultural themes? Because whether we want to admit it or not, every film is a balancing act. And I
Mm.
thought this film, you did a really good job in kind of delivering a fun film, but at the same time, still, I guess, being responsible as far as maintaining those themes as well.
Yeah, well, emotionally, my grandfather died in the war. He was killed in Papua New Guinea, in the Pacific, and my mother grew up without a father, and that was emotionally resonant for our entire family. The mythology of that man who was my grandfather. And this film is dedicated to Jim Roach. And so I wanted to try and find him through the writing of this. And I did read his letters home, and I discovered a man he's just like a charismatic, funny, brave leader of men who people liked and trusted with their lives. And I just thought it was so tragic that guy died.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to tell that story a little bit. So if there's an emotional resonance in it, it's probably because of that. But the idea of silence and violence, and I wanted to make a dream tone poem without being too pretentious about it, because the idea of sitting out there on a raft in fog, being hunted by a monster, while you're dying of thirst and hunger, your brain would go into a little bit of a dream zone. And so
Yeah.
I wanted to reflect, the psychology of that. And I did a great pass with an editor that when once me and Reg Squarco, my co-editor, had sort of finished our cut, we brought in an editor called Steve Evans, who's one of the most talented editors in this country. He cut Chopper and Baby Teeth, and he's great. And he and I sat down and we did a pass that was kind of a dream pass. And he and I very much discussed the idea that each scene should flow into the next like words in a poem, and we want it to be like phrases, like everything should flow like a dream or a nightmare. And so we cut a lot of the dialogue out and just went with sound design and like the feeling of the thing. Mm-hmm. And so I'm really happy with the flow of this piece and how it's put together. And we use silence a lot because if you've got a long extended section of silence and suddenly a shark pops up and bites somebody's leg off, it's 1,000 times more scary than if you've got a bunch of chatter and then there's violence. So it was fun to play with that. Yeah.
And speaking of the shark, the shark was built practically by Formation Effects and puppeteered on set. Why was it important to you to rely on animatronics rather than CG, and how did that affect the performances?
I just keep seeing shark films pop up like every year, like 10 shark films are made. And like, I'm just like, I don't like the digital shark. It moves too quickly and the water displacement doesn't look real. It just looks like a really well rendered video game. And I'm just like, you got to go back to Jaws. Like that huge 1-ton shark that they had so much trouble with, like, when it bursts up out of the water and like all the sort of liquid explodes around it, you can sense the weight of the thing under the surface. And like that's the thing that CG just can't get right often, is like the weight of the creature and the interaction of that weighty creature with substances around it, particularly water, fog, actors, whatever. You need that interaction. And so it was very important for us to do most of it practically. And so Formation Effects built it was 3 sections of puppet. We had a giant puppet head that you put a stunt diver in, and he's basically just like operating the jaws. Very easy to use, like fantastic. And like when it pops up out of the water, we've got huge explosions of like CO2 underneath it, so that it really it looks like it's not just a head popping out. It's like you feel the tail working underneath it. Oh, wow. And the water's churning up around it. And then of course you have another explosion of like a giant blood tank explodes underneath it and the water goes red, and suddenly you're like, oh, okay, we got to film here. Then we've got the fin, which was effectively, we built a submarine with a fin on the top, so it comes up and goes down, but you see the fin, but more importantly, you get the idea that there's something the size of a bus under that fin. So it's not the fin that's scary. It's the fact that there's something with weight under that fin. That's the scary thing. And it's the waves of water that go either side of the fin, showing that there's a 1-ton creature under that. And then we had an attack head that was built on rails that would, surge forward and explode up out of the water, and, have these animatronic jaws munching at the actors. And this is on an indie budget too, man. Like, so we had to build that shark. We had to build the tank. There was no tank big enough, and there was no indoor tank big enough in Australia to like do what we wanted. They were all like 25, meters circumference. We needed 40 meters of tank, and so we had to build a tank. And so, just to be able to do something on that epic scale with the tank and the shark on an indie budget it's a real testament to the producers and the crew that they were able to pull that together for me,
Yeah, definitely, man. And that's kind of why, honestly, I keep returning to your films. You seem to know how to really stretch a dollar, like all of your films, while they are indie films, they look really high, like high value. This film included, and that's kind of why I was so excited when I saw your name attached to this project. You're known for these high energy genre films like Wyrmwood, Necrotronic. Beast of War feels a little bit more restrained, though, even meditative at times. Kind of like how you were mentioning, you guys went back and edited, so there's like a lot of silence. That silence and violence. Was this a conscious departure? And what did you learn from directing in a different register? I kind of wanted to end with that, man, just because I love the other films, but it almost feels like the evolution of your prowess, or how you're starting to kind of see things in a new way.
Yeah, something happened with this one. This one doesn't feel like my other ones, and I think it's because there's a deep emotional connection to it, through my grandfather, and um, it I grew up with brothers, and like I really know the life of young men, existing together and going through things together, and I just really connected into the story and the context in a way that I haven't previously.
Yeah.
Um, and I think the period aspect of it, and the fact that we were kind of inspired by a true story, it felt like we needed a different approach to this. And it was funny, the first cut that I put together, I'm like, I'm not going to put inspired by real events on it. I'm just not. I'm not going to do that. I don't feel right. And then we did that other pass where we really locked into the character of Leo and just told the whole story from his perspective, and like found that dream tone that I feel, it's a maturity tone that I haven't had in my previous films. My other films feel a little bit more like I don't, more like graphic novels, and this one, well, more like comic books almost. This one felt like a graphic novel. You know what I mean? Like I'm not quite at the Christopher Nolan, Denis Villeneuve. I mean, they're such wonderfully Kubrickian, just genius directors. But I'm edging closer towards that tone with this one, where it feels a little bit more like a real story by an adult. And I didn't, until we'd done that edit where it just had a more mature and real feel. It was only right at the end where I was like, you know what, let's put inspired by real events on the front of this. I'm quite proud of this one. I think we got it right. And yeah, it's different. It's a different one. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know why, but for some reason this one came out different, and I hope that I can keep working in that vein, because we found something that was quite emotionally resonant for us, at least. I hope the audience feels that too. But yeah, this one was special.
Well, from the viewer's perspective, I would argue that all of your films are very special, and this one especially. To wrap up, here at CineDump, we let the doers know how they're doing. You're doing just fine. I
Thanks,
appreciate
Jesse.
I appreciate all of your work, and I'm excited to see the next step in your evolution, man. It's been a fun ride.
That's great, man. Because these things are hard to make, and you sometimes you're just like, what am I doing this for? Is anybody even watching? And it's like when I talk to people like you who are like, not only are we watching, but we are appreciating. I'm just like, oh, thank God, somebody out there gets it.
Yeah, we're watching them all, and we're anticipating the next one, man. So
Oh, fantastic.
just know you have a fan in Texas. Very much appreciate your work, and good luck with the rest of the day, man.
I had one of my favorite weeks in Texas. I premiered Wyrmwood years ago, back in 2014 at Fantastic Fest in
Yeah.
Austin. Man, your state is the best, eh? Like the best barbecue, the best beer, like the best cinema audiences too. Like, oh man, it's a wonderful place. Yeah, I love you guys.
Well, if you're ever, I'm actually in Houston. If you're ever in Houston, I'll shoot you a message on social media. If you're ever in Houston, let me know. I'll take you out for some more
No,
barbecue.
that's great. I got a few mates in Houston. I hear that's very cool too.
Excellent,
I'd love
man.
to. Yeah.
Well, good luck with the
Thanks,
rest of
Jesse.
the press. I appreciate your time, buddy. Bye.
Cheers, legend.